What's up everybody and welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we're going to be talking about what zero night was like for me when I went to basic training. Let's get into it. As you guys know, I do like to start off with some of the basics. My name is Michael Inman. I'm an airman in the United States Air Force and I upload a video every Monday. So if you like military content and of course learning about the military experience through, I guess, my eyes, definitely hit the subscribe button and make sure you click the notification bell so you're one of the first people to find out when I upload a new video. But let's get into the story. So, last week we ended the video pretty much saying, hey, all of the recruitees made it to the airport in San Antonio safely, and literally we are eating our last meals, making our last phone calls to our family so that we could go down the super dramatic escalator and run into the first MTI of our BMT experience. And so I guess I'll start there. I was going down the escalator and the first thing I saw, I think, was actually a sign. So it was not an MTI, but regardless, saw a sign and it said, turn left if you are here for basic military training. So slightly anticlimactic, I know, but let's continue. So all of the recruits, like I said in the last video, I think there were about like 22 to 30, large range, but just follow with me. There were about 22 to 30 of us recruits coming in from different parts of the United States, but all here for basic military training and of course about to embark on zero night. So we made it to the bottom of the escalator and we saw the sign and we immediately started walking to the left. So you could just see us as a herd of people generally between the age of 18 and 38. I think that's the cap, I'm not quite sure. And we just started walking left, looking slightly lost and slightly nervous. But then, probably after only, 30 seconds of walking, because I guess we're easy to identify, an MTI with the very stereotypical black rim hat yelled at us from across the hall and said, I don't know what he said, but he pretty much said something that equates to, hurry up, stop wasting my time. And so we all start to pick up pace a little bit. And of course, in our minds, we're like, okay, it's happening, game face on, don't look stupid, here we go. So we march over to where the MTI is, and he immediately tells us to get in one of the lines, because it becomes very apparent that we were not the only recruits in this airport. People had been arriving all day to be getting to basic training for whatever cycle, season, whatever it's called, let's say cycle of basic training that we would all be a part of. So there were, I mean, to us it looks like hundreds, but there were probably like 50 to 100 other airmen who had arrived earlier who were just waiting to be sent to Lackland. And so we immediately made a new line in the hall. So if you were coming into the airport picking up someone you loved, we would be most to the right. But when we had come down the escalator, we had turned left and then just went all the way into that area of the hall, which you could tell is kind of reserved for Air Force recruitment, Lackland Air Force Base operations. So we immediately get in some form of a line that looks like the other lines. We put our bags beside us, and then within about 10 to 15 minutes, we are then kind of herded to like a check-in desk, and there's about 4 or 5 MTIs just floating around. They're not really yelling at us because it's a public space, plus my group got there at 11 p.m., so I'm assuming they had a long day already, but I digress. Hopefully you guys are still following. So then we gave our required documents to check in just to make sure on their database they can confirm that we didn't die en route or get stuck somewhere or miss a flight. Yes, I'm referencing a previous video. Go watch it if you haven't seen it. Anywho, so we checked in, we gave them the required documents. Most of it was given back to us, but maybe they kept a copy of our orders. You're supposed to have a lot of copies of your orders, so print out 6 so you can hand them to anyone who wants one. But they took the required documents and then we are told to pretty much stand in a different line, meaning you've checked in and you're now ready to go to Lackland. Both groups of lines weren't moving very much, but that was how they were generally organizing people who were coming to the airport and who haven't been checked in, large group, and people who they've already taken their documents from and are now waiting for shuttles to Lackland. So after we provided our paperwork, we then got to stand in the line with a couple other recruits. But by a couple, I mean, once again, 50. So it was once again, I mean, I felt this way throughout the airport experience, but it was nice to be standing next to people that I didn't travel with, because it was just, I felt it was fascinating to ask what jobs people had. And so I'd be like, oh, what job are you doing? Or where are you going after basic? Assuming we don't fail. But that was very fun to me, just trying to see if I could get anyone that had the same job or had a similar base they were going to go to, or even had similar bases that they dreamt of going to. I don't know. Maybe I just like chit chat too much. So we stood now in the group that was waiting for a shuttle, and about 30 minutes passed before we were able to then make it on to one of the shuttles to Lackland. By the time our group was able to get on a shuttle from the airport kind of main reception hall to go to Lackland Air Force Base, maybe 35 minutes had passed. So it wasn't that long of a wait, but it felt like forever just because you're very scared of what comes next. But what does come next? Let's keep moving. So my group, I'm trying to think if the group that I had traveled through the airport with, we generally were moving as a block through this process, even though we were not going to be a flight once we got to basic training. But because we checked in at the same time, we of course then were on the same bus to Lackland. And so, anywho, we all boarded the bus, and then we started the about 25-minute trip from the airport in San Antonio, so San Antonio International Airport, going to Lackland Air Force Base. Now, what was the theme or vibe like on this bus? The vibe thus far had been quietness and like small chatter, because of course when we were at the airport in the main reception hall, there were MTIs, even if only 5 of them compared to like 100 of us. We still felt watched, but the vibe on the bus, at least from my experience, going to basic training after some of us had waited over a year to get on that bus, it was kind of like a contagious excitement. People weren't very loud. Maybe we didn't want to disrespect the bus driver or distract him, or it was still 11:30 at night. So some of us were very tired because most of us woke up, once again, MEPS Part 2 at 4 a.m. that morning. And then of course had 3 or 4 flights. Thanks, Department of Defense, for not booking even a slightly direct route. But so we were very tired, but regardless, on the bus, maybe this experience will be similar to yours. There was just this energy. People were talking to each other. People were saying what part of BMT they're most nervous about. People were just exuding this like 20 to 30% nervous energy with like a 70% I can't wait to see, not necessarily what comes next, but if it will meet my expectations. Will I be scared the whole time, or will I become someone new? And so it was a nice bus ride. So the bus ride lasted 25 minutes, and then of course we got off the highway, and that's when people started going, oh my God. And then it became very clear that we are entering a military installation. And that's when people definitely got quieter, because we were all now saying, okay, it's about to happen, get it together, let's do this. So when we passed the main gate of the Lackland Air Force Base entrance, a security forces officer or security forces airman came onto the bus, and then pretty much just was like, good luck, guys. He got off the bus, and then our bus continued officially on to base. Of course, it was very dark, so we weren't able to see much, but still, the energy and the anticipation and anxiety was now rising, because in all of our minds, we were about 3 to 7 minutes away from an MTI officially coming onto the bus and telling us to get off the bus. So we pulled up to this surprisingly very modern building. It's actually called the Piffington, P-Festin. I don't actually remember. Everyone just calls it the PRC, but it's the Piffington Reception Center. No idea how to say it, but the PRC. We pulled up to the PRC, even though we didn't know it was called the PRC quite yet. And the first thought I had was, wow, this is kind of a nice building. Some why that makes me feel like I chose the right branch. So we pulled up to the PRC, and we're all looking out the windows to our right, because that's the side where the building's on. So everyone, even on the left side of the bus, is like reaching over people to like see who's coming our way. And then we see two MTIs exit the building and start beelining it toward our bus. And so the bus driver opens the door immediately when the MTI is in front of the bus door. And the MTI comes into the bus with, a sense of presence, and he's walking with purpose. And he actually does not yell at us. Now, I don't know. Not to say there's not yelling later in the story, but I'm not sure if he didn't yell at us because that's just not what they do at that moment anymore because times have changed, or if it was because at this point it's almost midnight and he is tired because he's probably been yelling at people since his shift started, which I presume is like 4 p.m. if they're doing 8-hour shifts. So I don't know if I would still be yelling at recruits if they got there at like midnight either. I'd be like, get off the bus. So he gets on the bus and he says in a stern, serious, slightly mean, but not elevated, yelling voice, when I say so, pick up all your things, make a single file line, and file yourselves into this building behind me. Do you understand? We all say, yes, sir. He gets off the bus driver keeps the door open so we can hear him, and he says, let's go, let's go, let's go. And so that's kind of the elevated voice that we heard at this point, at this part of the night. So we all pick up our stuff pretty briskly, and we make a single file line. Eventually, we just start understanding a default setting of which people in the bus should start setting up when. So then it becomes actually kind of nice and smooth and not a hot mess of. So getting off the bus actually was successful. We filed our way into the PRC. And once we got into the PRC, we were then kind of told by a female MTI, she might have been yelling, to stand immediately on the wall to the right and make a double line, so 2 lines that are parallel, pretty much curving all the way from the wall immediately to our right, all the way kind of in a circle, up the ramp to the door that leads to what turned out to be the main amphitheater for this building. So we were told to stay there. We stood there for maybe 5 minutes. Then eventually we were then filed into the huge amphitheater of the PRC. And that's when we saw 2 airmen in front of us who looked like they weren't quite MTIs. They looked like if this was college, they looked like juniors and we were just freshmen. That's the vibe I was getting. And later I found out that they actually were hold airmen or airmen on med hold or some kind of hold. So they were going through basic training and something caused it to be pause. So this was one of the things that they can volunteer to help out with, to maybe just change up their schedule, keep them busy, keep their mind alert. So we sat down in this main amphitheater. That's not the word. It was a big room, okay, guys? Big room. Sat in the big room, and then maybe 5 or 10, really, maybe, I'll say 15 minutes passed, and P.S. The only MTIs we've actually seen are the people who got us off the bus, told us to get on the bus, and then the MTIs who were at the front desk in the PRC who told us to then enter this hall. Once we entered the hall, we actually were kind of being babysat by these airmen who were airmen on hold, but have clearly been in Lackland for like multiple weeks, if not 2 to 3 or more months, depending on what type of hold they're on. So we sat there looking totally confused. We're all now feeling how tired we are, and we're just kind of waiting for what to happen. So it's kind of just complete silence. Later, there's a little bit more conversation in the room, but I'll get to that. Regardless, after 15 minutes, an MTI storms into the room, and this person is not quite yelling, but once again, maybe because it's late at night, people are definitely talking very intensely and pointed, but no one is raising their voice and yelling at us. Again, it could be a new rule, or it's just people are tired, it's past midnight. So the MTI comes into the room and tells us that in a very organized manner from his left, going all the way to his right, because this is like a huge like lecture hall, so he's like making very clear indications of all you guys sitting over there, going into the people that are in more of like the because there's like, this is not going well, just know, left to right. So from his left to right and all right to left, y'all need to get up in an organized manner, row by row, when one of these airmen on hold airmen tell you to, and follow through that hallway and turn left, and we'll tell you what to do after that. So this is the part of the story when our group, or when your row gets told to stand up and leave the hall, you will leave your book bag or whatever travel bag you brought, and then you are taken into the first of two rooms. In the first of the two rooms, you get provided a book bag. And this is where you are going to be provided all the things that you should generally kind of sort of need, either throughout basic training or to be fine for the first like week or so of basic training prior to being allowed to go to the store and get more things with the $400 card that you're provided as like a debit card while you're at basic training. P.S. that's your money that they're giving you, so don't think it's free money. Cool. My row finally gets called, and I enter the first room. The first room, it's pretty basic. There's another MTI there just saying, hey, verify that all the things, and it's a list of like 40 things. So maybe, I don't know how it all fit in the bag, but it did. But there's a list of like 40 things. Make sure all these things are in your bag. So when I say hold up the hand sanitizer, all of you hold up a hand sanitizer. When I say hold up 2 Sharpies and 3 black pens, you need to do that. If you hold up 2, I'm going to find you and say, are you not listening or is something wrong? Both of these things are a problem. Explain. So that was kind of the situation. It maybe took 10 minutes, but it was fine. Once again, we're just verifying that we have everything we need, and then we all are told to stand up and enter the second of the 2 rooms. In the second room, that is when you are given your, what was the Apex jacket. I think since we were going to OCPs, maybe by the time you watch this, we have completely transitioned to OCPs, which are more of the darker green military outfits instead of the lighter green that you may see in some of these YouTube videos. Anywho, I'm not sure if the Apex is called an Apex once we change uniforms, but regardless, you're going to get some kind of heavy, not heavy, but like a waterproof, heavier than it needs to be jacket that you will of course wear when it's very cold outside and or when it is raining in Texas. After you get your bag in your Apex, in the second room, you're provided a couple other things. I think that's where you get the Apex and a couple other things. And then you go back, oh, very important. That's where you also get your Bmg Study Guide. And so we will be talking about the Bmg Study Guide much later, but just know it is something that you're going to be learning from for the next 8 weeks, 8.5 weeks. So don't lose it. But you are provided your BMG study guide, and then your row is filed back into the large auditorium where you had been spending your time prior to getting all of your new goodies. After like 75% of the auditorium had gone to get their stuff and there's only a little bit remainder, people, or the vibe of the room did get lighter. And so when I say it got lighter, I'm just saying, like, people started talking, not too loudly, but they started talking. We weren't as nervous. We were like, okay, this isn't that bad. That's because we hadn't got to the barracks yet. But anywho, and that's when the two airmen on hold, who were kind of babysitting us, monitoring us, that's when they, in a very informal way, said, hey, if you have any questions or concerns, now's your time to shoot. Like, we'll answer a few of your questions. Hopefully we can help out. And so it was nice to kind of do a Q&A, literally the first day of basic, with older airmen. When I say older, I mean they just have been at Lackland at basic training for longer than us. So upperclassmen, it was nice to just do a Q&A with them almost from the start of our experience, because it just made us all feel calm, and we were able to ask them, hey, does the food suck? Hey, do you get enough sleep? Things of that nature. And this is also when, maybe 10 minutes into that Q&A, when these boxes of food were put at the back of the auditorium, and we were told in what form and order we were supposed to go get our box of food. Now, I'm sure you're wondering, was the box of food delightful, pleasant, and something I'd do again? No, it wasn't. It was trash. It was horribly trash. It was bad. It was very, very bad. It was as if you put a turkey sandwich with questionable mustard, maybe some apple slices, and I don't know, some carrot sticks in a freezer for a year, took it out and said, this is still good. Let's serve it to our recruits. Because I'm pretty sure, maybe I got the timing wrong, but that's exactly what it is. It is food from a fridge that is meant to keep the food forever. So it is still cold, it ain't heated up, it's hard to chew, all the condiments are rough. Not a pleasant time, but you do what you gotta do. So we have our dinner for, like, meal number 4 of the day, dinner, the second dinner, or you could say your early breakfast. And we're eating, and then finally, I think 2 or 3 MTIs come into the room. They kind of storm. At this point, it's like 12:20, 12:30 in the morning. They come in and they pretty much say, we're gonna put some lists on the screen. When your name is called, stand up, get your personal belonging bags and your new issued items bag. Get up, make an orderly line at the center door for exiting the auditorium, and when she, the other MTI, tells you, you are going to follow her commands and exit the auditorium. So when they do this, by the way, this is you finding out who's in your flight. That is who you're going to be spending the next 8.5 weeks with, assuming none of them get kicked out. I eventually had my name called. It was a list of, I think, 51 people. I stood up, I got my 2 bags, I went to the back of the auditorium, and we stood there. Eventually, the MTI, she did say, okay guys, when I say so, exit out of the auditorium, turn left, and put your bags to your right and left, and you better not block the walkways. So we did exactly that. We grabbed our bags, we walked out of the auditorium, kind of knowing that these were going to be our brethren for the next few weeks, and we went exactly where she said, because she was scary. So we put our bags down, and then maybe after 5 minutes of waiting awkwardly, that's when we were told to told that the bus was here. And so that we are to orderly file onto the bus and that we are going to officially be heading to our barracks. Whether that be Disney or Alcatraz, we didn't really know. Also, it's important to note that these 5 MTIs that we had run into, whether they were the ones who got us off the bus initially, they were sitting at the reception desk in the PRC once we entered for the first time, or if they were the MTIs who were managing the item issuing process, wherever the MTIs were, it doesn't really matter. All of those, let's say 5 MTIs, are not your MTI for your flight. They have this duty as an MTI, and whether that switches every so often, I don't know. Maybe possibly after you have a couple flights, you get to take a break for a couple weeks and you get to work as a reception MTI. But I know that the people who work there will not be your MTI once you get to your barrack or dormitory, if you want a word that you understand more, I don't know. So regardless, we got onto the bus departed. We were very, very tired because at this point it's like 12:30 or 1 in the morning. We're very tired, but again, it all is becoming so real. And even when we're exhausted, there's this excitement behind all of our exhaustion of this is the thing we've been waiting for months. And so that's kind of the cool part. The bus departs, and there's kind of, I think, 2 roads generally in front of us. You can see one, there are bright lights in front, like bright lights coming from that road, and you assume it's Disney because it just seems newer. And then there's like a dark road to the right, and I presume that that's where Alcatraz is. So I don't know, I'm not paying too much attention, but generally I'm looking out the window kinda, and I'm starting to conclude, oh, okay, so this bus is gonna turn one of these 2 ways. And luckily, our bus turned. That is enough for tonight. Thank you for watching, and next week, we'll continue it. If you liked the story, please subscribe and make sure you hit the notification bell so you're one of the first people to find out when I upload again. Have a great rest of your week, and